Big Italy 42, welcoming you to the Cash Games Locks podcast. Today's podcast, I'm discussing tonight's 15-game slate. I have a couple pre-prepared tentative cash game lineups I'm going to run through like we always do on Tuesdays and give you kind of an idea of what I'm looking at, like some guys to target. I'll give you some pivots off at similar prices, cheaper prices if there are those, more expensive prices obviously, to kind of give you an idea of where we're looking today. And obviously, game in Coors Field, Jorge De La Rosa versus Michael Wacha. De La Rosa is a guy you do like to pick on. Wacha's not necessarily a guy you usually like to pick on, but in Coors Field, obviously anything goes. We saw John Lackey get absolutely stomped last night in Coors Field by the Rockies. So obviously I don't expect much different out of Michael Wacha or De La Rosa for that matter tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to start off at FanDuel, and I'm going to talk about my cash game. I'm going to give you a lineup through, and this is obviously earlier in the day, so things very subject to change, and they likely will. But I'll give you some options and give you a good idea of where my head's at and what I'm looking at for today. So starting off at the top, a lot of pitching options. I think that a guy that's going to be fairly popular is going to be Eduardo Rodriguez at $8,200. And while I do like his upside, I think he's more of a GPP play for me. I'm going with Corey Kluber, $11,100. And this is a guy who has absolutely tremendous numbers this season. Faced this same Seattle team 2 starts ago. Went 7 innings, 13 strikeouts, picked up the win, 21 fantasy points on FanDuel. And with that being said, this is a guy who has been absolutely locked in after a rough start to the season. 9, 13, 7, 12, and 18 strikeouts his last 5 games. 8, 7, 8, 9, and 8 innings pitched. You're hard-pressed to find a hotter pitcher right now. Maybe Chris Sale. Hopefully you played him last night in your cash games. Obviously, I was on him as well. He was the play. Obviously, there was some weather risk as well, but he was the play. Did not disappoint. Had 1 inning where he started to struggle. That certainly didn't last long. So Corey Kluber for me, price considered, he's going to be your top option. 30.6% strikeout rate, 0.64 home runs per 9, just a 4.1% walk rate. Everything really going in Kluber's favor tonight. Facing off against a weak Mariners lineup that has added Mark Trumbo, but he hits lefties much, much better than he hits righties. I'm really not concerned about this lineup at all. I mean, you got Nelson Cruz, of course. Outside of that, Seager's having a down year, and Robinson Cano. I mean, if I say down year, that would be a compliment. He's having an awful season so far. Not a guy that I can trust right now or maybe ever. So with that being said, really no one I'm concerned about outside of Nelson Cruz in this lineup. I think Kluber has himself a great day. Don't think he sees much resistance from this lineup. So, I'm going to be definitely targeting him as my top option in cash games. If you want some other swerves here, some other options, there's certainly many of those. As you're looking on FanDuel specifically, I think Dallas Keuchel at $9,900, is a fine option as well. If you want to save a little bit of money, gets a White Sox offense that is just not very good. They scored a couple runs last night. Keuchel's been very good. He went complete game shutout against this same team 2 starts ago. Another guy with another start. He gave just 4 hits, 11 strikeouts, not a single walk. Gotta like Dallas Keuchel in this one. I think he did give up 1 run in that game. But either way, $9,900 is a great spot for him. I think if I'm not going with Kluber, if I have to have that $1,200, I think he's a fine swerve there. As far as other cash game options, I did mention Eduardo Rodriguez. I think we'll see quite a bit of him tonight. I'm not saying he's a bad play, but I think that Kluber is just such a lock at the top there. It's such a great matchup. I don't see any reason to go away from him and dip down too far, especially with a guy making just his 3rd career start. If you have to have a cheap guy, you want to load up on Coors, you want to load up on some other hitters, I think Carlos Rodon at $7,200 is an interesting play. Faced the same Houston team 2 starts ago, wasn't great. 9.33 fantasy points, went 6 1/3, just 4 Ks, 8 hits. 10 Ks last time out at Texas. Obviously, Houston, big-time upside. They strike out more than anyone in the game against lefties. Chris Sale, obviously much better pitcher. 0 issue with them last night. So you're certainly not ever expecting a performance like that out of Carlos Rodon, but I think he's an okay spot if you're paying down. But like I said, I like to pay for starting pitching, and it gives you that security. I think Corey Kluber's got a floor of about 15 points. I'm hoping he gets into the 20s. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. So those are the guys I'm looking at there. Elsewhere, catcher is going to be interesting tonight. I'm considering a couple guys. I have Deono Navarro currently in my lineup right now. Switch hitter. He's min salary. Gets Dan Herron in the Rogers Center. Few games removed from an injury. He's not an everyday player, obviously, with Russell Martin there. But I expect he'll be in the lineup. He wasn't last night. Min salary. I want to get a piece of the Rogers Center. And a guy that hits from the left side of the plate against Dan Herron. So I think he's in a fine spot. If not him, you have to pay up a little bit more. I like Nick Hundley at $2,700 in Coors Field. If he's not in the lineup, then I'll be paying a little bit more. Russell Martin, another guy, $3,200. Almost certainly he'll be in. You got to like him. And I think as far as cash, those are the only guys I really like. Yadier Molina, $2,900. Michael McHenry, $3K. A little bit more than I like to pay for catchers, despite them being in Coors Field. I think Sal Perez at $2,500 is your other option that you feel comfortable with in cash games tonight. At first base, I'm looking here at Ben Paulson. He's $3,000. I think he's a great option. In Coors, gets Michael Wacha. Had a great game last night. Went 3 for 5. Had a double. Had a triple. I mean, he's not the most proven hitter, but obviously in a good matchup in Coors Field, you got to like him. If you're not going with him, this one's an easy pivot. Down $200 to Mark Reynolds on the other side, $2,800. There are some top options you could pay for. I'm trying to get some other big bats, one particularly in the outfield that I'll get to here in a couple minutes. But I think one of those two guys is your best way to go. Neither guy, you don't love either guy, but you love the matchup, you love the park factors, and there's a lot of 7 and 7.5 run totals today. You got the 10-run total in Coors Field, 9 runs in Toronto. So if you're not targeting one of those two guys, you're probably targeting pitchers for the most part from those games. I'm trying to get most of my hitters from these spots. And with that being said, one of those two guys is going to be here for me. With that also being said, second base, I'm going to be punting. I love Jose Altuve in this matchup at $3,600 against the lefty. Also Colton Wong at $36, but I had to pay down just a little bit because you want some other big bats in your lineup. I went with Ivan DeJesus. Obviously, you're not chasing last night's big game, but this guy is a pretty good hitter. Reds just called him up to give some pop to him. He played out in left field last night, had a double and a home run among his 2 hits, 8.5 fantasy points, 2.4K. You're not going to really find a better option than him down at that price unless you're just chasing a home run. I think he should be in the lineup. I like that a lot. Around that same price, another guy who hasn't been great, but he's cheap, Corey Spangenberg at $2,300. If he's in the lineup, I don't mind going that route. But I'd much rather go with DeJesus in Cincinnati against Aaron Harang and in a much, much better ballpark. Third base is going to be interesting tonight. You know you want some Matt Carpenter. You want some Nolan Arenado if you can afford him. But those guys are going to be tough to pay for. So I'm going to be punting the position and getting some value. Mike Moustakas against Trevor May. He's $2,400. Been one of the more consistent hitters in all of baseball this year. He's been very good. 5 homers on the season, 12 doubles, a triple, even 1 stolen base. I mean, this is a guy facing a slightly above average pitcher, Trevor May. I see people picking on Trevor May a lot. That's not to say he's a guy that I'll avoid by any means, but I don't think he's a guy that I'm going on my way to pick on a lot. But at 2.4K, a 300 hitter batting second in one of the most consistent lineups in the league. I'm going with Mike Moustakas here to save some money at 2.4K. Shortstop, you really have 2 options for cash, in my opinion. You're going to be paying up. You're going to be paying either for Troy Tulowitzki or Johnny Peralta. Going to be really tough to fit Corey Kluber with Tulowitzki and this other guy I'm going to get to in the outfield here in a minute. So with that being said, I'm getting Johnny Peralta into my lineup at $4,200. Don't love paying that price tag, but you love him facing a lefty in Coors Field. He's got monstrous upside. As you know, having some power this season, 9 home runs, 16 doubles, 34 RBIs. He's walked 21 times. He's a very, very good hitter against lefties. I think he is the most consistent hitter at shortstop so far this season. Tulo obviously getting it going now, but he's a guy that it's been a long time coming. So obviously you want to get some exposure to him tonight. But I'm going saving my $500 so I can get my big bat in the outfield, and I'm going with Johnny Peralta here at $4,200. If you need some other options, I think Jose Reyes is a perfectly fine pivot if you don't want to go the Coors Field route at $4K. I'm really not going to pay down because I think those 3 guys are head and shoulders above the rest. Other cheap guys are going to be tournament options for me tonight at shortstop. Outfield, get into this guy that I've been talking about. I keep alluding to him. I think you know where I'm going with this one, and if you don't, let me let you know. His name is Giancarlo Stanton, and he absolutely destroys left-handed pitching. He gets Mark Burley tonight, who is not having one of his better seasons. Actually, as you look here, lowest strikeout rate of any pitcher on the board tonight, 10.6%. And his splits against righties this year have not been very good. 312 WOBA allowed. And Giancarlo Stanton has been an absolute monster this season, especially with power. Still not hitting for a great average, but I mean, this is one of the best hitters in the world against left-handed pitching. You want to get yourself some exposure, and it's in the Rogers Center. This year, against left-handed pitching, 500 ISO, 445 WOBA, 184 weighted runs created plus. I mean, he's only had 44 plate appearances against lefties, but 10 hits, 2 of them doubles, 1 of them a triple, 5 of them home runs. This guy's a machine against left-handed pitching. He's under 5K at $4,700. He's a lock for me at this price on FanDuel. You obviously want to get him wherever you can, and he will be in all of my cash game lineups, and I love this spot for him. He's coming off of a nice game last night. 2 doubles, a home run, 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs, 11.75 fantasy points. You got to get yourself some Giancarlo Stanton tonight. If you're not getting Giancarlo tonight, you are not living right. I'm getting some Giancarlo all over the place. Next up, John Jay. Obviously not confirmed that he's in the lineup, but with Matt Holliday leaving with a quad injury last night, which looked a lot more serious than it was. Fortunately, all it is that quad injury. I think he should be in the lineup tonight. Remains to be seen where he'll be batting. It should be interesting to see. You could see him batting at the top of the order. You could see him batting seventh, maybe even ninth if the pitcher's batting eighth. So keep your eye on that. But at $2,600, he's the cheapest piece of Coors Field that you'll find. I'm going with him, getting some value. And he's not a guy with much power, obviously, just 1 home run in the season, a couple doubles. But he's got some speed. He did homer last night. So, I mean, you're certainly not chasing the home run. What you're chasing is the cheap upside in Coors Field against lefty and De La Rosa. You don't love the lefty-lefty matchup, of course, but John Jay at that price, I don't mind him at all. And speaking of a guy facing lefty, Ryan Rayburn, we know one of the platoon guys for the Indians. He really only starts against lefties. $2,300 against Roenis Elias tonight, who hasn't been terrible, but I mean, at times he's been erratic, and at near minimum salary, I think he's going to be a popular play. I'm certainly going with him there. To give you a couple pivots there around that price, and I'll let you know there are not many. With this lineup, I have $100 left over. I think Will Venable is an okay play. I think that I think he's probably the one guy I'd really look at. Elsewhere, you've got a guy like Odubel Herrera against Anthony DeSclafani, who struggled with lefties this season. I think he's an okay play. Nick Markakis against James Shields. You don't love the matchup there. Those are the other guys I'd really be looking at this price. You consider Angel Pagan. He's had a couple decent games. Really not much upside, but a fine cash game play against Syndergaard at $2,300. That'll about do it for your pivots, your swerves there. All right, next up, I'm going to transition over to DraftKings, and you're not going to be surprised by my top option. I don't need to give you the rationale once again. It's going to be Corey Kluber. I absolutely love Corey Kluber tonight. He'll be in all my cash game lineups, and when I say I'm going to play somebody, you know I'm going to play him. Corey Kluber, unless I find out there's random freak thunderstorm, he'll be in all my cash game lineups. $10,900 tonight, and he's $1,100 less than Max Scherzer. Makes that an easy decision for me. And like I said, I think Max is a fine play. Not paying his top-tier price tag in this matchup at the Yankee Stadium, but that's not to say that he won't have a fine game. But especially on DraftKings, now $12,000, I just can't do it. I'm looking over here at Eduardo Rodriguez. As I said earlier, wasn't a guy that I want as my one SP, but he's going against a Boston team that's striking out second most in the league in this matchup. So Eduardo Rodriguez in a fine spot tonight as my SP2. Baltimore striking out a ton against left-handed pitching. You do have some guys, or Baltimore, I'm sorry, is striking out a ton against lefties. You got some guys, Adam Jones hits lefties really well. Steve Pearce, throughout his career, has not done it this year. Has not been very good at all this season, in fact. So there's slight concern, but I mean, this has just not been a very good offense. I don't mind at all targeting these guys. And I mean, $7,100, a much cheaper price tag than he is on FanDuel. So I think he's a great SP2 option that you don't anticipate he's going to implode. He should get himself some strikeouts. If he gives you 6 quality innings, you're happy at that price. Maybe 5-6 strikeouts, gives up a couple earned runs. I expect that to be his floor tonight. I think he'll be a fine play. I was value hunting at catcher. I came up with Michael McHenry at $3,300. Like I said, don't know for sure who's going to be in the lineup, but we'll check that out as it comes up. Jonathan Lucroy against a lefty. Yes, Liriano's good, but Lucroy throughout his career, very good against lefties. Nick Hundley, a swerve for you there at 3,200. So really, whichever one of those Colorado catchers that is in the lineup tonight is a fine play if you can get them. Moving over to first base, nothing new to see here. I went with the same as I did before. Ben Paulson or Mark Reynolds. Paulson's 3,200. Reynolds is 31. I think that's the way to go at first base again today. You can actually play the other one at third base today, which I think is going to be interesting. That's one of the options here. Second base, I like the price tag on Colton Wong. I'm getting him in my lineup today at $4,400. I think he's a fine play as well. Your other options right there, Altuve's at $5,100. You really like him, but it's a tough price to pay. Dustin Pedroia at $4,400 against Miguel Gonzalez, I think is in a fine spot as well. Ben Zobrist at $3,800 isn't a bad option. And then Neil Walker at $37. Certainly don't mind that either. Now, none of these other guys I feel great about playing in cash. You could consider, if you want to go down cheap, Ivan DeJesus. He is second base or shortstop eligible. He's $2,300. If you wanted to go that route, you can really load up on some other big bats. So I'll give you a hypothetical with him in it. So I'll put him in over Colton Wong, and then we'll see where that goes from there. Third base, if you play Ivan DeJesus, you can certainly fit Matt Carpenter at $5,000. He is in a lefty-lefty matchup, so you don't like that, but he's actually hit lefties pretty well. If you want to go that route, I think that's a fine play as well. But what I want to do here is go with a guy like Miguel Cabrera, $4,600 against John Lester. Yes, Lester's been much better, but Cabrera mashes left-handed pitching. I think he's a great option at just $4,600. One of the best hitters in the game, and especially against lefties, at a discount. I love that option tonight. So either one of those you can go with. Aramis Ramirez at $3,400. He's going against Liriano, like I said, a tough matchup, but throughout his career, he crushes lefties. So I think that he's in an okay spot tonight if you wanted to go that route as well. Shortstop, Johnny Peralta or Troy Tulowitzki. With this lineup here, I have enough money to get either one of them. So I'll say for the sake of things, Tulo is the play that I want. I love Johnny Peralta as well. He's in a phenomenal spot. Take your pick with whichever guy you like. I have Tulo in this one right now, and he's at $5,500. Take your pick, whichever guy you like there. In a great spot. Moving on to the outfield, you're not going to be surprised by my first play. It's Giancarlo Stanton once again. He's $5,200. Not quite as great of a price tag as he has on FanDuel, but still a perfectly acceptable price tag. You can fit him in, and you got to like the spot for him. 28 DraftKings points last game, 19 homers on the season. I mean, he's just in a tremendous spot. Like I said, I'll have him all over the place. Carlos Gonzalez, $4,200, my next play. Michael Wacha, Coors Field. Doesn't matter who it is, Coors Field. Got to like that price tag for a guy who's finally starting to heat up, Carlos Gonzalez. He and Tulo both starting to get it going at the same time. So now these are the kind of Rockies stacks that you want to have in your tournaments and in your cash games, because this is a team that was disappointing at many times this season. But tonight I think is a great spot for them. Got to like that. And my final outfielder is John Jay once again. He's only $3,400. Once again, like I said, make sure he's in the lineup, but he should be. You certainly expect that. Other options around that price tag, there's not a whole lot to love. Joey Butler's in the lineup should be in lineup against Matt Shoemaker. Should be batting near the top. If you like him, Randall Grichuk at $3,600 if you just want some more Coors exposure. He's a fine play as well. Outside of that, I don't love a whole lot. Kevin Kiermaier at $3,500 also against Shoemaker. I think he's a fine play, but really don't want to dip a whole lot below that. Rajai Davis at $3,400 against Lester. I think is an okay spot as well. But you don't love that in cash games. I think Cabrera is the only one I feel okay with playing in cash games against Lester. So with that, if you have any questions, find me on Twitter at BigItaly42. Follow us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Check out all of our great content for tonight's action, every other day's action at dailyfantasycafe.com. And I'll see you guys next time.